Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. Today, we are going to talk about what is going to happen with my channel moving forward till the end of the season. So, I am going to still be covering the Raptors, as you can see, but I'm going to shift my content ever so slightly. So, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be covering the Raptors in a particular manner. And what that means is that I'm going to be talking a lot more about the draft. So, how am I going to cover the draft? The first thing that I'm going to do is keep in mind that the Raptors are probably not going to get the top pick. I am going to talk about some of the top prospects, but in general, I'm going to stay away from them because I don't think that the Raptors are going to be bad enough to get a pick that is high enough. But I'm going to mainly be looking at guys who may fall into the, say, 8 to 15 range. Maybe I might expand that out a little bit. But yeah, what do I think that the Raptors need? Personally, I see that there's a need for a dynamic guard who can create or a dynamic wing who can self-create. But additionally, ideally, someone who can create for others. Finally, I think that it's ideal to have defensive upside. I think that that's a very important skill that we lack on this team at times. Obviously, we do have a lot of defensive players, but sometimes, if you're bringing in someone who has that offensive skill set, usually they are going to be lacking on the defensive end, is what I'm trying to say. So, the other thing that we need to do is we need to address something that went down this season: point of attack defense. So those are the type of players that I'm going to be looking at. Near to the end, I'm going to be making predictions on the range and where I think that the Raptors will end up. It's probably going to be in one of my next videos. The other thing is I'm going to just tell you right now who I'm covering and how I'm going to cover it. I'm probably going to cover Scoot because I've already created that video. I will be covering a lot of other guys like Cason Wallace, Nick Smith Jr., Keyonte George, Anthony Black, Jett Howard, the Thompson twins, although probably I'm going to focus more on Ausar. Brandon Miller, I think that it's only appropriate to talk about him because he has moved up in the draft, although I don't think that we're going to get him. And finally, Gradey Dick. I don't know if I said Jett Howard already, but if I didn't, I would like to talk about him. I might, if I finish all of that, cover Wemby, because Wemby is a very interesting prospect, but I don't think we're going to have a chance. How am I going to cover them? First of all, I have my own way of analyzing the game, but again, I like to look at what do teams need and what guys fit that skill set. So that's kind of how I'm going to be looking at it, but also I'm going to be looking at how other guys who are covering the draft view this player and kind of compare it to how I see it as well. So hopefully that gives enough of a kind of a preamble or a precursor. There's some other guys that I will cover, but basically it's going to be under the guise of the Raptors getting a middling pick or a middling lottery pick and what they can do with that. I'm also going to talk about my dream scenario at the very end of that in terms of what they can do to potentially move up in the draft or get other guys. But again, ultimately the Raptors do need to address, now that they've addressed the center spot, at least for now, and obviously that may or may not change in the future. I understand why some people feel like they don't like Pirtle because of certain spacing issues, but I also understand why people like Pirtle because he's just such a good basketball player that he raises the ceiling of he raises the floor of the team to a pretty decent level when he's on the floor. So with that being said, again, to just reiterate one more time, I think that the Raptors need a guard or a wing who can shoot, who can be a self-creator and potentially create for others with playmaking upside. There's some guys that exist in that range that are able to cover that, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any guys that I haven't mentioned today that you would ideally like me to cover, I'm not going to be covering second round guys, mainly because we don't have a second round pick. So again, if you have any suggestions of guys that you'd like me to cover, for example, Chris Murray is another guy who would be potentially interesting to cover. Let me know, comment it down below, and I will see you in the future. All right, peace.